Right, Jackson, who are we interviewing again?
I have no idea.
You got no idea?
Kurt.
I thought you organised this. Kurt? Kurt, is that short for curtain?
Yes, it is, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself, son.
Right, well, I grew up...
Don't take too long.
The same as everybody that probably watches these podcasts. Wanted to ride bikes professionally for a living. Thought I was going to be the best in the world. Got to ride bikes professionally for a living. I was not the best in the world, but it was my job at one stage. And then moved on to a life into army, so military career.
Military?
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of days off? I mean, there's no wars going on, so...
Yeah, look, you can pick your own adventure. So you can take the days off, but you got to owe them back somewhere.
So it's pretty easy?
It's pretty easy.
It's pretty easy? Cool.
Yeah.
Where's all the money go? It's like 30 billion a year or something.
Into the van that I drove here and into my kid bikes.
That's good. Now, there's a rumour going around, you're a bit of a Swiftie.
A Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
Recently converted in the last 7 days.
Yeah, right. How's that gone for you?
Not good. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and I've got a wife who's she's up there with the Swifties.
Yeah, gotcha.
And it's just getting thrown down me every day. And I'm a very smart person when it comes to fighting, using words, and I can't. I've got nothing. All I've got is I hate her because I hate her. And it's just not enough facts because my wife has actual facts on why she's great and I have nothing. So I've just had to turn. So yeah, I'm a Swiftie.
Yeah, right. And they let you in the army?
I was already in the army before I was a Swiftie, so...
Alright, we'll stop mucking around. We're sitting down with Kurt Shields here today. Kurt is a...
physical training instructing sergeant.
Yep, in the army, in the Australian Defence Force. Kurt's got a crazy background. He's also been involved in Speedway racing as well. So a bit of a motocross history, as well as the top tier of physical training as well. So Kurt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have gone along with every fad, every rabbit hole, every idea of whatever it takes to be the best. Been surrounded with a lot of great people in my life with racing myself. With fitness, you get wrapped up into I'm going to be the best. I can do this. I've just got to follow what these people said, and then eventually over the years it started to, little things wouldn't add up.
Yep.
So a little bit about myself with where I am today was kind of like all the things that that did me dirty, so to speak, all the things that I thought would lead me down the path of success and didn't. I just went to work full time on every theory, everything that everyone said worked. I did it for as long as I could until I could prove otherwise, and then I would note that down as that's something that's not true, or there's missing parts to that. So who I am today, I guess, is a vigilante of the fitness mindset world.
So to give context, like the way you summarise it to me, is you basically have a budget to go and test anything with the physical human body.
Yep. So as a PTI, it's not a job that you can join, or actually it's becoming that way that you can, but originally you had to be in for 3 years of service. You had to be in the top, say, 5% fittest in your battalion, your unit, where you were, identified as someone who was fit, do a entry test, like a barrier test. You'd have to go into a 5-week course, and only the top student on the 5-week course, so the top 20 fittest in that area, would get a ticket to be a PTI. They'd get the top 20 from around the country, and then you would go and do a 6-month course learning exercise physiology, whatever. So once you become a PTI after the couple of years really that it takes to get in, your job is to progress people from day one to full trained soldiers as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So if that means that you need to do external courses, kettlebell courses, yoga courses, anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you just say to the army, hey, I need to do this because it's going to make potentially soldiers better. Right. They say, sweet, no worries, and they'll just pay the course and you just go and do the course.
Well, that sounds like a pretty bloody good job.
It's not too bad. Obviously, we've got ties with Monash University. I've made strong ties with the AIS as well, so I've got people I like to cross-reference things with, which makes it handy because every now and then someone will challenge what you do or say. Say, hey, it's because you're on drugs, or it's because you've got this, or it's because you've got that. There is always a reason as to why you're successful in something. And I really kind of get sick of that. So I like to challenge it and go, hey, I'll just ring and ask, and I'll go and ring a friend who's a smart dude, smart chick. Is this really how it is, or is this really how it's supposed to be? And then they'll say, no, there's a good chance you're genetically gifted towards that. So can we test that? Yes. And then you'll get tested and they go, hey, yeah, you've got like an amazing genetic response to this. So then it turns out being epic at circuit training, high twitch muscle fibers, all of these things, isn't really that everyone can do it, that you're great at it.
Yep.
So it become a really useful tool to have, you know, these people at your beck and call, because it's answers and people need answers. Yeah,
cool. So you're basically filtering through the opinions and the theories just to find out what is objectively true. That's cool. And then to connect that to bikes, you've got a history in speedway racing. Tell us about
that. So chase the dream to be a professional speedway rider, and I think my goals were challenged early on. So I had 2 years overseas as a young dude, one to mechanic and help and to learn the scenes, and I was supposed to get exposure and get known. And then the second year was to do racing and riding and make a name for myself essentially. And I came home, I didn't get along with my parents, so I left home really early and met my wife. Women have been known to change the world, or run the world, as Beyonce says. And yeah, I fell into the trap of it. I met the girl of my dreams, who we're 20 years this year, been together.
Yep.
So at the time, that was a huge career derailer. It was I'm now a racer, I'm now a full-time boyfriend that racing comes second. A couple of years later, that wore off. No disrespect to my wife, who I'm with for 20 years now.
I'm going to send her that.
Yeah, so she's probably watching anyway. 20 years, yeah. So we just went to work and built together, kids. We learnt and we raced, and then I went back to racing here in Australia, and we're going from Brisbane to South Australia to everywhere. Spent every cent we had. We slept in cars. We did the same Chad Reed stories that you hear of whatever on a smaller scale here in Australia.
Yep.
Had a daughter. She slept in the car with us. The year before I went overseas with her as a family unit, we went to race for Rye House. I had, I think I made every A final there was here. If I didn't win it, I was in the top 3.
So what series is this?
So this is like the Winter Masters series I used to do in New South Wales. And then at the end of the year, you would have the state titles, you would have the Australian final, and that would be where all the guys from England would come home.
Yeah,
so that was the true test. Essentially, it would be like MX Nationals here, and then all the guys who were over there racing professionally, like Jet and all those, would come back at the end of the year. So although you're up there with the best or the best here in Australia, it's not really the best Australian. But it's the process. It's what you needed to do. So we did that. I went over to the UK again in 2009 and did some practice meetings and some test events, and got selected the same night that I went over and rode, and signed a contract and went back and got to tick the box and live the dream.
Cool. So you've got a history in bikes.
Yep.
You've got an unlimited budget to test physical performance.
Yep.
Is motocross the hardest sport in the world?
No. No, it's not.
Elaborate.
And once again, this is only the world according to me. I can't say that it isn't. All I know is I train 2 to 3 hours a day. I think that I'm in a really good physical spot. I think my cardiovascular system is quite on point. I think that my muscular conditioning is on point. I feel like I'm a very capable person. It's my job as a soldier. I know what I am capable of. I can go to Chesney Vale on the weekend, and I can throw it down range for the 15, 20 minute sessions, whatever they are. Yeah, I get tired, I get sore, and worst case scenario, I got to sit down for half the lap, but I can still do all the jumps, and I cruise back in, fist pump my kids and whatever. I've done water polo because I said it was probably one of the easiest things you could do, because I watched a bunch of people doing it one day, and I thought, you know what, water polo, I'm going to give it a go. It's probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done.
Water polo?
Yeah.
Is that because you're wearing budgie smugglers, or?
No, that part I was actually okay with. No, it was 10 minutes in the water, and there isn't any rest.
Gotcha.
And while you're panicking, you cop an elbow from somebody, you're trying to leap out of the water, you're treading water as your rest. There becomes a point of fatigue where you're like, hey, I've just taken in a fair bit of water, I'm starting to panic a bit now. Do people really do this? And then you see the fit guys doing it, and they're just toweling it up.
Yeah.
Is water polo the fittest? I wouldn't say it is, but it's up there.
What is?
Honestly, I honestly don't know.
So have you read the study about the motocross being, I think it was second or third, they put it after soccer, and I can't remember what it was.
I've seen a credible study. I don't know that was super credible, but I've seen a credible study by an organisation that I think is very well known for data, and it was like 17th on the list.
Motocross?
Yep. And the reason is because I can show you the top 10 fitness. I can give you basically a fitness test today that would show you what the guys in NRL, AFL, any of those sports go through. I cannot show you the top 10 motocross athletes in the world, what they go through, because they don't really have a set protocol. There's no set procedure.
Gotcha.
There's no data. There's no analytics for it. I can't match you against anybody because motocross doesn't have that data.
Yeah, yep. So are we talking on a purely physical basis, like what's the most physically demanding, which is how I phrased the question?
Yeah.
Does that take into account anything on the mental side of it as well, like the risk, the high adrenaline, the pace of it?
Yeah, I think it does. And once again, if you encompass all of it, so the mental state, the physical state, the duration, because you can't forget the duration of time is quite a lot longer than what a lot of people are doing other sports in. So tennis is a shorter game, high heart rate, shorter game, more rest. But have you ever been for a run and gone past the point of your normal distance? So you've now gone past where you can normally run. You're redlining, you're fully exerted. Where's your mental state? It's trashed. If someone asked you a question that you knew back to front, it would be very difficult to answer if you could answer it at all. And I can also keep you running at a certain distance, at a certain pace. We could even cap it at 30 minutes, the same as a moto. I think I could break your body much quicker running than I can in moto. Mm-hmm. So then those who run the data sheets and they run the science behind it, the reason it doesn't rate that high is because there's so many variables with motocross. I mentioned the other day, like rock climbing. Very physical sport, but if you can't hang your body weight on your toes and your fingers, you will never know how strenuous it is because you can't actually hold yourself enough to get the benefit from it. Motocross is very similar. There's big jumps, there's a lot of things one thing that's close to you is skill. A lot of things that are skill related before you even get the benefit of fitness out of it.
Yeah.
Because if you can't ride, 2 laps at Chesney Vale is the worst thing you've ever done.
Can you measure skill in any tests?
There is tests in every other sport.
Yeah.
How you would measure the skill test in motocross, I don't know because it's variable lap to lap. Every lap is different. Perfect skill this corner, perfect skill that jump, but you've got to do that 30 times over in a race. So I don't know, it's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is hard because motocross, it's very unique. I will not stand in anyone's way to say that it is 100% unique, but the most physically demanding, I'm not sold on it. If you were to try and, I'm not a football player, but I do like NRL.
Yep.
If I was in the state of origin and the ball went high and I was a fullback, had that glorious number 1 jersey, and my job's to watch the ball as a bunch of 100+ kilo dudes are trying to break me in half, man, I don't know that, I'd probably attempt a triple in Supercross before I do that.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
I can't think of anything worse than your eyes not being on a bunch of people who are trying to get you to break you first.
Yeah.
That for me is terrifying. So
kind of sounds like a first corner on a motorbike.
yeah, it can be. You do have the option of brakes.
Yeah.
You've got the option in front of hundreds of thousands of potentially millions of fans. You're going to be the dude that goes, I'm going to stop and wait. I need to watch my sternum, or I'm going to watch my back. So I'm not going to, you can't do that. They're football players. They need to just take the hit. Essentially, you're taking a car accident to catch a ball.
Yeah. I'd say that's relatable to motocross. There's a lot of times I've not wanted to do a jump, but you have to do it or you lose. And if you lose to someone that you know you can beat, it's embarrassing and so on and so forth to anyone watching in your team. They're all specific nuances. I sort of want to get a little bit more into like the physicality of the sport. I'd agree that motocross isn't, it's like all encompassing. You have to have a little bit of everything to even be half decent at it. Yep. Whereas some sports, say cycling, you just have to have an amazing aerobic engine and off you go. Maybe like rugby, as you mentioned, you've got to have, I don't even know how you'd summarise that. You've got to be very tough, gritty to be able to handle the knocks. Like you've got to almost disconnect from your mind and take a hit. Yeah. Whereas motocross, I don't see any area that it lacks compared to another sport, so to speak. Like you have to have a little bit of everything. You can't be weak, you can't be unfit, you can't have a lack of skill, you can't have a lack of technique, you can't have a lack of mindset. It all encompasses. Like if we were to say running, I'm not sure there's a whole heap of mindset as far as like fear goes. There's not much risk on the line. Like you can lose obviously, but as far as a risk of health or injury type deal. When you do test, is it possible to say, are you just testing one specific thing about a sport? or you
No. So
take them all in?
the difficult thing about trying to get motocross recognised as one of the toughest sports, or the toughest sport, is I've done this before. I took it to a board of lab techs, so all exercise science, exercise physiologists.
Yep.
Really smart people who were not into motocross at all. So I started with the wow factor by building show them some video clips. This is motocross, and wow, oh my god, awesome, oh my god. Heart rate, this is the heart rate. This is, and they were like completely blown away. That's an incredible skill. So what is it that you want to discuss? And I said, I think it's probably one of the most challenging sports on the planet. I think it's the toughest sport on earth.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and the room right away was like, oh, really? Like, even after they saw all that, like, really?
Yeah.
So what do you guys do as an entry level? So a test to get into the top ranks? And I said, what do you mean? Like, so for you to ride motocross for the Australian Championship, so that the peak, the most professional, so there's top of Australia. What's the testing protocols? How do you get in? So you buy a bike and you pay for a license and you turn up.
Yeah.
But you have to qualify in the top 40, and they're like, oh, okay, cool. So you got to qualify in the top 40. So there is a skill-based effort. So you have to be in a certain. So that's every round. You have to qualify in the top 40. They googled a handful of rounds. They're like, 33, 37, 34, and I'm like, what are these numbers? And they're like, that's how many entrants there were.
Gotcha.
So essentially, these people didn't have. So even if you could barely ride a bike, you were in. It's like, I guess you would be confident that you could be, you could turn a bike. Like, you wouldn't turn up to a national if you weren't confident that you would look alright. And he's like, I don't know, man, it's a hard one because you can just turn up and do this. This isn't really so for instance, AFL has like a mid-14s beep test before you can get looked at. That's as a physical performance. That's a barrier. He's like, anything like that, what have you got? So I don't know. And he said, can you get me the top 10 motocross riders in the world?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you probably more so want to judge the top five to the top five, or.
And I said this to him, and I was like, hey, listen, what about Ryan Dungey? What about the Alden Baker program? They're like, cool. Can you show me some more riders? And everyone that I said at that stage, I started backpedaling a bit because it's a bit off-putting when someone's derailing your plans. I thought it would go a lot smoother. And everyone is like, yeah. So they're all under the blanket of this Alden Baker. So yeah. There is other trainers, and you think about what do they look like though? Like
probably not much to a group of scientists.
The crazy ones, and you're like, can I really bring this dude up as an advocate for the sport? So I'm like, yeah.
Imagine someone in a lab coat googling rhino.
So then it became difficult because it was hard to sell it, because then it was like, well, you're saying that the one dude owns all of these great people.
Yeah.
So then, isn't that biased? That's like a boys' club then. So as long as you get in with him, then you're in, because no one else outside of him has really done much. And then it's like, Eli Tomac has though.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's he train? In the hills in Colorado.
Yeah, I get it. So they're sort of looking at motocross as in like the system and the infrastructure that filters out how you get to the top, which to me is sort of null and void, whether 1 million people do it or 100 people do it. It's just how hard is it at that peak.
And that's why I couldn't push any recognition for it to get a decent level up the study. Because I read it and I'm like, hey, like mid-teens, like, are you kidding me? Like when I go and do back day, you feel parts of your back that's sore. If I go and ride motocross for a weekend or do 2 days in a row, my whole back from top to bottom is aching. There's something worked. You can feel it. And I really wanted people to see that.
Did they say much about the heart rate side of things? Because that one to me has always been puzzling. Like I've obviously dabbled in lots of different sports here and there, and I can never, ever, once ever replicate anything within like 20% of my motocross heart rate for 30 minutes.
So you can't replicate heart rate. So I've actually done significant heart rate training, and this is actually something I was going to bring up with you before anyway. I went to the page of like the top 3 or 4 motocross coaches right now.
Yep.
When I say the top, they're probably not the only ones, and everyone listening will probably say, I've never even heard, these are just guys that come up in my feed all the time. They're quite big, they've got a decent following. One of them stated that heart rate training was only used as a recovery tool, and if you are doing it solely off performance for heart rate, then you're an idiot. And it went through to say that it was kind of like a rhino thing where it's a bit controversial, like you're an absolute idiot. I don't know where that comes from, because heart rate training is like, knowing your heart rate zones and knowing is so much more efficiency. So that's the difference between guessing if I'm at a good level or knowing that you're at a good level. If you want to be the best in the country, that's guesswork. Whereas knowing would be, that's important. You need to know. So a heart rate and heart rate training is very important. You cannot replicate heart rate training. I had my heart rate at, I think it was it was like mid 170s on the start line at Glen Helen. Before my event was even ready. Like the other race had gone. So as I'm sure most motocross events all around the world are the same. At Glen Helen, there is so many different classes, so many different people. So one will go off the gate, the next one's in. By the time they're around the first corner, you're in the chute ready to go.
Yep.
You get like 20 minutes. And my heart rate was like 170. Mainly because the Canadian dude next to me was just like, when we're thinking world vets, this dude had a full rig belt, his mechanic was there, they were screaming, fist pumping, slapping helmets, telling everyone like he's going to get him in the first corner and this is me, this is my time. My heart rate was through the roof. I can't replicate that for that duration. I don't even know, I haven't even looked at my watch to see what it was during the event.
Yep.
But that's not something that you go out and train in the gym. If you want to get a high heart rate, go for a run.
Yep.
It'll get there. If you want to keep it for a certain amount of time, go running further. You will get it through running. But heart rate training isn't really what people see it as. They think a heart rate training is like, that's the value. That's not the value. You need to get blood flow through your body as most efficiently as you can. So then you would work on a 7-day cycle, and you need to make sure that over 7 days you increase your blood flow by whatever %. Using your heart rate, because your heart rate is the pumping valve that circulates the blood and the oxygen.
Yep.
So that's your conditioning, you're working, and that's how you would gain your volume in your program to try and get your body used to pumping more blood. To get fitter and to be better at motocross, I think you need to have fresh oxygen flowing through your body as much as you possibly can. You can only get that with a lot of work. Mm-hmm. You can't do sedentary movements, pumping weights in the gym, and then expect on the weekend all of this blood flow all of a sudden to just work in your body. It just doesn't work. So heart rate and heart rate training is a great way to keep track of it, to gauge it, and to know where you're at. Am I better this week? Am I worse? And what am I doing?
Yeah, for sure. It sets a scoreboard for your training. Yeah. Basically, so you're not just shooting in the dark, which some motocrossers will tend to just shoot in the dark, and I feel better, so it must be better, which is always a little bit up for debate. I actually was listening to something with Ken Roxon the other day, and he said his only training metric that he measures is his heart. Yep. So he doesn't really do anything else. He goes off feeling and his heart rates, which I thought was something interesting. And I'm just theorising here because I haven't actually read in detail the study that says motocross is, whether it's got its second or third most physically demanding, but it just makes me think of it is that no other sport can replicate that high heart rate
I don't know how...
For 30 minutes, 35 minutes straight?
No, I don't even know how to believe that. And I can show you the writing and the data on it. I can show you
That no other sport can do that?
No, it's not even a sport. An activity can do it.
Another activity. So you can hold a heart rate, because I would never ever had an average under 190 for a moto, and I know a lot of guys are the same as that, and that's for 35 minutes.
I know it's a big thing, but I would be prepared to do this at any given time. If you said after this interview, I want you to have, let's be honest, most people's heart rate in motocross, although they say it's in the 190s, 200s, depends. Fear comes in. If you nick someone's back wheel, it's pretty high. But I have gone to Chesney Vale before and ridden as hard as I can, or I've gone to Albury and ridden as hard as I can for 20 minutes. Not a world champion, not the best in the world at motocross. My heart rate sat around 140 to 170. Yep. Consistently for 20 minutes. That's not under race pressure. That's just me riding with my mates and whatever. Yep. I reckon I can have my heart rate at between 150 to 170 for an hour. Mm. I know this because I've done it about 1,000 times over. I could do that on a cycle as well when I would train, for sure. But then again, like any time I ever race, I maybe measured my heart rate at least 500 times through motos. Yep. Never ever once under 190. The average would be like 195, 198, and my max would be like a 202. Yep. So it would be held down. And if I was doing a practice moto, I'd sit in like the low 190s, maybe high 180s if I wasn't having a go. And then if I'm just riding, trail riding, whatever, as you just mentioned, it'd be the 160s to 180s, so to speak. So to try and, just to replicate that high heart rate is incredibly hard. Then the decision processing that's going on at that high heart rate, and then you add in the fatigue anaerobically and physically. To me, I think that's why they come up with that assumption, is because you've got those three going on. Yeah. And then I know the main thing that they pointed to is that in, like, say, world-class soccer, you'll play for, is it 90 or 120 minutes? Couldn't be certain until then.
I think it's 120, and they'll get to the very last 5 minutes, and they're usually like 0-0 or 0-1 or 1-1, and then everything that's happened all comes down. So now you're the tightest you've been, you're the most under strength you've been, you've got the most pressure on you, you're the most fatigued,
Yep.
and the last 5 minutes is the only minutes that matter to win the game. I think that's where they come along with motocross as well, because they say, look, you can race an entire 35-minute moto. The last lap is where it decides most of the time if you've got to win or not. Whereas there are other sports, like say if it's marathon running or tennis or whatever it is, like there'll be a bigger separation in those final stages. What's your thoughts on that?
That's a pressure thing. That's a situation thing, I guess. That's the parts that you can't replicate.
That's the mental side, yeah.
100%. Like the heart rate, the high heart rates are an interesting one for me because my heart rate has gone over 200 on a number of occasions on my watch where I can bring it up and go, yep, it peaked at 202 or whatever it may be. If somebody asked me honestly, do you remember when it peaked at 202? And what was the difference between 170 and 202? I can't tell you. I don't even know when it was. I can't tell you the point in the race where I was like, oh my God, like I'm panicking, like I'm out of sorts, like I know my heart rate must be astronomical right now. I can't tell you the difference. I couldn't even really tell you from 150 to 202 what the difference would be through the distractions, through just everything that happens. So I don't know, the whole 102, 202 heart rates, the difference between, it's all situational, like you said with the soccer thing. You can't practice that. That's just what happens. And this is one of the things that I found the most interesting in the military is, much like the police, they train for those 1% moments. So how do you replicate somebody drawing a knife and you actually thinking you're going to die? I can't give you a taser and you know it's me doing it. You know I'm not going to kill you. You know it's safe. So you can practice that all you want. But when you are out and it's happening, what's the value for that? How do you train to that value to say, I've ticked that box because I now know that you are prepared for that one moment? But they throw in, I guess, tactile aids. They'll throw in something that is a physical damager to you, like tear gas. Go in this room, tear gas gets pulled. What's that sound? What's that noise?
That's something real.
Holy shit! Now my eyes are leaking stuff. My nose is leaking stuff. I've got stuff coming out of everywhere. I don't know where I am. I'm panicking, starting to cough and splutter, and then the door will open and say you need to get down, you need to crawl to that marker. Once you're at the cone, you need to stand up, you need to run forward to the next cone, you need to draw your weapon, you need to take aim, when you're ready, fire, down, and then you can't even hear this. Well, you get out of the door and it's a run to the cone, you've got someone saying just to the cone, it's just in front of you, it's in front of you, and the whole time all you can see is just nothing.
So you're in like the most panicked fight or flight state, and then you have to perform. That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because I do agree with that. Like if you're racing at a high level or just competing or just trying to defend in a fight or whatever it is, those moments when the pressure is on, like those clutch moments, is when you need to perform. And I do see a lot of people sort of get very excited over the data and the numbers and stuff like that, and that's all very, very important, but it's in that moment that it needs to work. What happens in those moments? So
where I had the tear gas experience was at the Naval Academy down in HMA Cerberus in Melbourne. That's where you do your PTI school, and they had some spare time where they said, hey, do you want to come and do some stuff that naval training at the academy does? And I said, yeah, like why not? I'm Army, I'm probably never going to get the chance to do this. One of them was a ship filling up with, it was just a module of a ship that was built, and you're at the bottom, and they'll say, when we are on, give you the signal, there's the tool, so there's a wooden plug, there's a hammer it in, stop the leak. If you don't stop the leak...
So there's actually water coming in?
Yeah, if you don't stop the leak, you die. And I was like, okay, sweet. So then they've got pipes set up so that through these busted holes, the water really floods in. And it was flooding in. Like where we had, like, don't panic, like it's a simulation, this is all fun. Like this is all good. And then it was up to just under the knee, and I'm like, holy shit. And then the stuff started floating, and it was like, is this serious? And they're like, well, yeah, because the ship things will float in water, it's water. So then you pick it up, you belt it in, oh, thank God, you run over, bang, it pops out. You belt another one in, bang, it pops out. And they shut the hatch at the top. So now it's black, and you can't see, and now you just, this is it, that was my one shot. So if I was on a Navy ship and I didn't have a choice, that would be my one shot. You get to the point where the water is now above your head, you're in a full sealed box. There is panic stations like never believed. then if the hatch opens up, you gasp for air, you come out, and they're just like, cool, we're going to do this a few more times until you learn.
Yeah, right.
Then we're going to take you through and show you the benefit of knowing the skill. We're going to make sure that you are strong enough and you're capable. If you're not capable, we'll give you a different job. Whoever is capable of belting it in hard enough to go in, that'll be your job. And they start to teach you that you can't replicate and be prepared for it ever. If you think you're going to die, there is nothing that can help you.
Yeah.
Your heart rate through the roof, everything is gone. But what they can teach you is the importance of making your body as physically capable as possible, so that when you're in that situation, you believe that you're the best you can be. So that when it does go south, there's nothing more that could be done, and there's a sense of calm about that.
Yep.
Like the tear gas, you're never going to be great at it, but they teach you that if your body was healthy and you were fit, the tear gas is going to affect you less. Your heart rate is going to handle it better if you're fit. So they teach you that fitness is key, skill is paramount, you must have skill, but those two together need to be the very highest they can be.
Yeah.
And then you'll understand that you can get tear gas 10, 15 times, you're never going to be awesome at it, but the fitter you are, that's how you prepare for those 1% moments.
That's awesome. Good story. If you've done everything outside of that moment to
Yep.
prepare physically, can you get better at that moment if you replicate it over and over again?
Yep.
So when the pressure's on, it's life or death, you have to perform.
Yep.
The first time you do that, I imagine you'd be like panicking.
Yeah.
Is the second time you panic less? Do you ever get like acclimatized to it?
Yeah, you do. And the thing that I guess the army does, and I'm only speaking from army because that's my world, that's where I am most of the time.
Yep.
The reason why it's different for us is because the fitness and the skills never stop. They'll give you those 1% replication times over and over again, periodically, like whether it's an urban assault, so it's breaching a door and going into an urban environment, not knowing where anyone is, whether it's a tear gas situation, whether it's whatever it is. But they make sure that fitness is key. It's daily. They make sure that your mental state is healthy, so they'll ask you questions. They'll make sure that you're in a good spot. So they just make sure that the skills and the fitness are number one priority. And then they'll just throw these target indicators in every now and then, and eventually you just start getting better at them, but you're also getting fitter. So that kind of trains you, that mentally trains you that if I just step everything up together,
Yep.
things just get better. Which is kind of what you said the other day with skill on a bike. You just need to do it. You need to do it and get better at it, and it's really important that you progress it, if not the most important thing, because without it, how can you get any better if you don't have the skill to go further?
Yeah.
But at the same time, everything else needs to progress with that. You can't put all of it into one basket and not sort of focus on the other stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree. I think this was something I noticed when you mentioned Eldon Baker before,
Yep.
and I studied a lot of what he does, and he said it a couple of times in an interview, which I'll probably listen to every single interview he's done on the internet 3 times over, is that when he first gets an athlete, the first thing he'll do is he runs them through a series of tests,
Yep.
strength, fitness, mindset, whatever it is. And he has a baseline of where everyone sort of needs to be,
Yep.
and then build them all from there. So what he'll do is he'll do the test, and let's say strength's all right, fitness is pretty bad, mindset's really, really good, and flexibility sucks. Well, cool, we'll just work on the fitness and the flexibility
Yep.
for 6 months, bring everything up to this level, and then a rising tide lifts all ships. So off it would go from there. Is that a similar formula to what you've learned in the army?
Yeah, it is.
Or do you just go like everything at once,
It's
or
like-
you work on the weaknesses and then everything?
Yeah, what he does is a block method. It's block training. So you would do if you were not fit at all, if you would take someone off the street, you would do GPP. So it's general conditioning. So circuit training, zone 2 cardio, because you need to build them a base. So you would do general fitness first.
Yep.
Then you would work into what are they really not good at. They're terribly weak. So now you'd go into a dedicated strength block where you would do still a good amount of cardio conditioning, because you need to keep that up and it needs to build. But instead of the all-round muscle conditioning, you're going to really focus on strength and building patterns. Once you've gotten that, now they're fit, they're strong, we're now going to condition them so that they're fit and strong together. So they get fitter and stronger. And then you would repeat that block again. But this time the general fitness would be elevated. So instead of doing like a basic circuit, now it's like a pretty full-on circuit. Instead of just doing basic strength teach, it's now full-on strength training, like a Wentler program or one of those other programs that are just all numbers and data and progressing. So they work at a 70% rate, but you'll increase on increment days. It's not just going to the gym and hauling weight and lifting. It's actually scientifically splayed out, results driven.
Cool. So it sounds like, yeah, similar thing in the
It
army.
is a similar thing, yeah.
Greg Moss mentioned it the other day in an interview. He said you've got to work on what the kid lacks. So with, say, Matt Moss didn't have coordination, so he would dance after dinner.
Yep.
Jake Moss, I can't remember what it was, but he made him do the dishes to fix the weaknesses and lift them and then go. Sounds like you do the same. Would you say the weaknesses typically come from like a genetic point of view or a mental? Like, I just don't like lifting weights, so I don't lift them, so now I'm weak? Or is it you're born genetically deficient in strength? What would be the typical cause for someone to have a weakness in their overall fitness?
I don't know. That takes a lot of time with somebody.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of... The one thing I loved about what Greg said, Greg's my type of person. Very straight, doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I think that is more important than someone sitting down saying, you know, what's your values and who are you as a person, and let's find out that doesn't matter. Yeah. Learn to be tougher. Learn to be able to work without all of these things needing to be in place. And that's kind of like the Greg mindset. He's got that brutal, like that old dude style of, you know, worrying about eating a tomato to make a 1% better in inflammation. Mate, you've got 50 other things you've got to work on. The tomato's the last thing you worries. And I like that because I resonate with that. There is so many other distractions. So he said, regarding this sort of stuff, like you got to spend so much time with somebody, but we're in an expensive sport. So the chances of doing 2 to 3 days a week is hard for a normal family. I have 2 sons that ride and myself. So every time we go riding, it's $130 minimum to go to a ride park. If I was to do coaching 2-3 days a week, it's through the roof. So you need time, but people don't give the time. And then he referenced swimming. People will go to swimming three days a week or 2 days a week, and they're there routinely. They fold their lives for it because they're not going to be a professional swimmer. They just want to be great at swimming, and that's what the swimming coaches say. You need to be in here on Wednesday and Saturday for squad swimming. You need to be doing these things. So, like, yeah, weaknesses and strengths, you just need to spend a lot of time with someone. Tom Brady.
Yep.
Weakest in all categories. Weakest in front of every coach, in front of every team, in front of every statistic that existed. He was worthless. He's the greatest all-time athlete that's ever lived. That was greatest athlete that's ever lived. If you listen to some of the things he says about himself, he says that he can't run a ball, he can't catch a ball, but he can play quarterback, and he became a 7-time champion, which is, they say, he's surpassed Michael Jordan and all these people. But he was written off in every category. But he was useful in that one specific area, and that's what his coaches brought out. They worked on his strengths. They made his strengths so big that they could then afford to work on the little weaknesses that he had.
Gotcha. So they exploited the strength and then just brought everything else, so it was just good enough to make the strength do its job.
And I heard the other day one of your podcasts that, you know, people can tell by looking whether you've got it or not. And then that would be where you focus all of your professional energy into the ones that have it. But if the ones that don't have it in your eyes or in that moment, they may have it. It may just be a different way. It may be not as easy a way as these guys had it. And I always reference my son. He's 11, and I let him go and ride without watching. So if I go to Cobram and I'm ready, getting myself ready, getting my bike ready for my young, almost 7-year-old, Lewis is fine. He can go and ride because I know he's not going to try any big jumps. He's not a dangerous kid. He's not a racer. He just is out there to kick around and have fun. He's my safe kid. Ruben is like every drug on the planet rolled into one 7-year-old, and he's just wild, and I have to calm him down. I've got to almost stand on the dangerous jumps to calm him down. So I would always spend my time with the younger one because he's great at football, he's great at swimming, he's great at motocross, he's great at everything. But I recently learnt that my 11-year-old had gone up and ridden a mountain bike and done some jumps and done some stuff, and he said, hey, can you please come watch me? I know I'm not the athletic genius, but can you come watch me? I want to show you something that means a lot to me. And I said, yeah, mate, let's go and do it. He hit these mountain bike jumps that I won't do them. And I'm fine to go to Bright and do all the A-line down at Bright, have a fun day shredding mountain bikes. I've got a great bike, it's very capable, I feel like I'm able to ride it. I refuse to hit these jumps because they were just terrifying. And I looked at it and said, I'm in disbelief that you do this. I said, yeah, watch, I can do a train if you want, and I can lead you in with speed. And I said, no, I'm not doing it. Like, no way. He jumped it. It looked amazing. Terrifying. I went home and could not stop discussing this with my wife. Like, this is why you can't judge. This is why you can't. He wasn't brilliant off the bat, the same as the other kid. And you go, I'm going to focus everything on Ruben because he's going to be something, Lewis doesn't want to do it, it's fine. But I didn't push very hard because he didn't present those A-class ticket flaws, those signs where he's hungry, he wants it, he wants to do this, he wants to do that. But he's progressed in his own time by himself, and now he's got that fire in his belly like, I want this. So now I'm actually kind of like, I actually think he's going to be better.
Which direction? Yeah.
But that's something that is difficult, and that's why I think what Greg said with, you've got to spend a lot of time with somebody.
Yeah.
You can't know today or tomorrow whether that person's going to be great in 50. That's why Tom Brady got missed.
Yeah.
Because people had that mentality where you had to have this, or this. If you don't, you're useless. See you later. No good. But I think if we trained everybody with the same energy and the same method, I think that we would find there'd be a lot more great athletes.
Yeah.
A lot more capable people would come forward.
Yeah, it's a good point. You basically just mimics what my career was. Like, I never finished top 3 in a national event ever.
Yep.
Competed in every one of them since I was 7 years old. Finished 4th, 5th, 10th. Usually was around like 8th to 10th.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I turned 19 I won my first Australian Championship. First time I'd ever finished in the top 3 in my life. And I often wonder what was the switch to go from the 8th to 10th to the first. And for me personally, it was purely just desire. Like, I always wanted it, I always did it, but the parents were pushing me this, that and the other, and did it all right. But when it came to 17, 18 and like, do you really want to do this or not? So it was just a mental switch for me, and off it went. I was no different physically, I was no different like strength, fitness, any of that. I was the same person on either end. The only thing that changed was the desire. I don't know how you give that to someone or predict when that will come or when it will leave or what it is. Can you instill that in an athlete?
I think as a trainer, this is one thing that people miss the point of. It's not our job to decide that or to worry about it. It's not even worth thinking about.
Yeah.
It's like when people have asked the question, like I said to you the other day, you know, what's more important, fitness or skill? Why are we arguing this? You need both. So there's no point asking what's more important. And I think that when it comes to identifying that something, that thing that you need to be successful, we need to stop that altogether and just train everyone, and the cream will rise. Some kids will surprise you, the ones that weren't the winners, but then came out of nowhere. Maybe there's something that got said during your time of getting treated like an athlete the whole time, getting treated like an equal the whole time. There's something where you went, hey, I reckon I could do this. There's like a thing where you just click, and maybe that's the reason why you clicked, whether you subconsciously knew it or not. I think if everyone as a trainer just said, we're just going to put all the information out for everyone equal, we're going to train everyone equal, we're going to treat everyone like an athlete until they decide they're not. That's what the army does, and it works really well. If you join, hey, there's nothing I can do to help you get out. You're in for 4 years, 7 years, depending on what you joined as.
Yeah.
But one thing I can help you with is that if you are turning up every day, which you have to, so it's a bit of a catch-22 because you have to turn up or you get charged.
Yeah.
But just go through the motion, just do it. And if you treat people from the shittest person in your cohort that you're teaching that day to the guy who is deadlifting 200 kilos, if you treat everyone the same, and it is really important to do this, you watch over 16 weeks, 18 weeks, 20 weeks, 18 months, you watch over the time these people start to level up and become level. Quite often you see the people who were great plateau, and the people who are underdogs come through and become something greater. So our method is to train everyone in one whole, in equal. And I think that if we did that in motocross, you'd have a lot more buy-in. I honestly don't know where people come up with their fees as well. Some of the coaching fees, I don't get, I shouldn't say that I don't get angry, I get angry quite a lot. But I don't get frustrated when it comes to subjects that I don't have any control over. But one thing that I do disagree with is that people charge a lot of money for this great information. As soon as, I believe, Gypsy Taylor's podcast came out and it said something about Jet's posture and his back, and that was everything. And then whoever he talked to said, yes, strong back, Jet's got a strong back and he's got a strong core. Strong back and core. I said to my wife, I'm going to lay a bet that all these weasels, all these slugs in the woodworks that come out, we're going to hammer on how it is important to have a strong back to be Jet. They're going to then all of a sudden discredit this kid for being probably a genetic phenomenon, just a freak in general. He just gets everything and it works really well. They're going to say that that's because of that. Sure enough, the next week, people have got sticks against their backs and they're like, if you have a strong back and an exercise that can help you I almost burst into flames watching it. I'm like, but on what planet? So you would not find a fitness trainer in any other code of sport that would be embarrassed enough after years of coaching to say that they've discovered that you need to work your lower back.
Yeah,
that blows my mind. I even showed this to a couple of health professionals who were really smart, work with a lot of athletes, and they're like, what's your first thought when you think of this? And I said, well, when I see it, I ask straight away, if you're only just working your back now, how did you build your programs? Like what? Because your back gets worked in like a myriad of different exercises. There's so many different exercises where your lower back gets sufficiently worked, and if you are a good professional trainer, you would program the amount of volume necessary, and you would make sure that your whole body gets worked accordingly, and you would already know and identify this because you've seen the sport they do, you've seen the fitness they're at, and you know where to work that into the program. So you would have already have done that. But they make it sound like your lower back. You've got to work it. Like, is that just because Gypsy Tail said it? Because is it a coincidence that a week later, now all of a sudden, all of these Aussie trainers are like, your lower back, that's how you become jet?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of fads in motocross, without a doubt. And it's funny, I was actually talking to someone yesterday. I was doing a coaching school at Swan Hill, and we were talking about how Luke Clout has a rounded back when he rides, very, very rounded, and like a Levi Kitchen will as well. There's multiple riders that will. Now, everything you get told is hips out, hips out, hips out. You have to do it. If Levi Kitchen came and raced in Australia, he'd wax everyone 9 times over. So should we all have a rounded back? It's like, just who are you drawing your inspiration from? Like, obviously there's always ideals, things that are better to do, but there is no one size fits all. And it's very much a trend of like jumping on these technique trains. Well, the guy that's winning is doing this, so everyone now needs to do this. But if you grab someone from a different generation or someone from another country and put them in a different one, they'd win completely differently. So to me as a coach, like I always just go back to it. It's just repetition of skill over and over and over and over again. It's not, you can't just take a photo of someone and say that's what they have to do, or say like this guy does this, so we need to do that. It's just a repeated skill over and over. It's not sexy, it's not cool. It's just like, hey, your balance sucks. We're going to do balance drills for 2 years and maybe it'll get better, and off you go. And then obviously everything else has to lift with that. But there's a massive trend of this guy does that, so we all do that. But there's so much more to it.
There's so much more to it. We used to have a certain culture towards push-ups, the push-up test in the army. You have to do a certain amount of push-ups in a certain amount of time to keep your job. Every 6 months you need to do your BFA, which is basic fitness assessment. If you can't pass that, you get a 30-day warning. If you can't pass it after the 30 days, you get a 90-day warning. You're out. How do you do a push-up? Now, for years, I heard people, not good enough, out, you have to do this, you have to do that. And they would coach them. And then obviously when I became a PTI, very civilianised, because a lot of these guys had been Army since they were 17, all the way up. I came in quite late. So I already come in with like a, kind of like a smart ass attitude to it all. Why? Like I've studied tons of stuff outside. I did most of my study outside, and civilian world doesn't do that. Like that's not how you do a burpee. Like I would start to then challenge everything they did. And then the amount of people that got failed for not having their elbows in a certain way was phenomenal, because one guy who was at the top said it has to be that way. Well, the writing says that you have to have your upper arm parallel, your chest or upper arm parallel, depending on what touches first. So you have a massive chest and you're flat on the ground, that's as far as you need to go. Pressing up, you need to keep a straight line from your head to your heels. No rest unless you break hips and knees, push your bum back in the air, back into the push-up position where you keep going. That's it. It doesn't say anything about where you can have your elbows or where to have them. That's like but if you can have them tucked in and you get down to upper arm parallel, you're accepted. And then all of a sudden the trend changed because somebody got put on the spot and they're like, oh yeah, so why can't you do it different? Which leads to the Levi Kitchen, the Luke Clout. If you're saying you have to have hips out, nah, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Are you going to tell them they're doing it wrong every single lap? Like,
the only metric that should matter is, do you get the job done and does it work?
And everyone's different.
It's like,
so if you can get the job done but your way is slightly different, those imperfections are something that needs to be used, brought out. You've got to accept people for what they are. And I think that I'm probably the least progressive person when it comes to that very statement in a lot of things in life. But one thing I think in the athletic performance, in the world of being an athlete, there's so many very, very cool athletes that have made it to the very top. And they haven't been the cookie cutter what they're supposed to be. They haven't been the right age, they haven't had the right background, Justin Cooper didn't have the amateur career that everyone else had because he went to uni and wanted to be whatever he wanted to be. Started later, and he's going all right. He's not the best in the world, but he's pretty good. I think everyone in this country, especially, if Justin Cooper came out, you'd have some concerns.
Yep.
But he did it different. Once again, he didn't come from that cohort of I identify this, that's important, we've got this. He comes from a whole different background. That whole fight between him and Jet was very words and below the belt trying to narc, and then old mate's like calm and did you eat donuts on the podium?
Yeah, yeah, it's like saying Tomac's mindset versus Jet's. They're both incredible. They're completely opposite.
Yeah, and I guess that's why I'm not really that fast on a mindset. It doesn't really matter. You just need to do the Greg Moss method, which is to get it done. Find a way, get it done. Get it done in any way you can, just get it done. And I think being tough in that headspace is more important than being like really well thought out, practicing your breathing, practicing these things. Time and place, but...
No, I totally agree with that. Like, one of my pet peeves is paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So it's just like diagnosing it head to toe, and I'm like, you could have been training. Don't worry about that. Just go out there. Yeah. Go, maybe when you get to like the top tier, you're in the top 10. Yes, then break it down.
Yeah.
See if there's a little extra things that you could do or you can't doing. But for the most part, like, big quantity, best quality you can, and go. Like, stop reading and diagnosing and doing all these things that you think are working. Like, lived experience is so undervalued. You can diagnose something from head to toe, but until you go and do it and learn as you go and figure out your own nuances, and there is no one standard copy playbook for all, apart from the fact that quantity and quality. Do as much as you can, as best as you can. And you've got to do that for like years at a time before it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well, so it's...
I went to a psychiatrist years ago who was a sports doctor originally, and wanted to work on neurological conditioning because that was where I focused a lot of my learning, and that's what I wanted to teach in the army. I wanted to branch and be more neurological than I did physical. Physicals, I can't write you a program better than anyone that you can find online. You can find a program online. It won't be tailored to you. I get that, and there is a point in people's fitness where they need to have things tailored for them because it's very specific if you're in a sport. But you've got some of the greatest sports scientists that exist. Their programs are free online. That's not the important part. So then I thought, well, if training's not that important and you could do any generic program that was written, obviously when I say any program, it still needs to be well crafted. It needs to have all body worked a couple of times a week. You need to have a certain amount of stimulus. You still need to have a certain amount of volume. It has to be a good program, but if that's set and forget, I need help with the other stuff. So I went to town and went to every psychologist that the army would let me have a chat to without it damaging my career. These things can impact your career if you've got a big file of speaking to psychs. They look at it as in, hey, see ya. So one of the things that I said is I really want help with my mental approach to things that are tough. I want help, I want to do this, I want to do that. And she said to me, do you drink coffee? I said, yes, I do. She said, what sort of coffee do you drink? I said, black coffee. She's like, okay, do you like the taste? Yeah. Love the taste, black coffee, it's really good. She said, yeah, what flavours? What's the flavour profile that you get? I said, I don't know, like...
Arabia bean.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the packet, like hints of chocolate and vanilla and like whatever. And she's like, yeah,
that's
so
quick.
You drink it because it's got no calories. You drink it because it's an energy hit. You drink it because it's just something that you get down. Now, is it better than a vanilla latte? So, I only have vanilla latte like once a week. I don't really like them that much. Stop lying to yourself, man. Honestly. You drink black coffee because it's got no calories. Of course, a vanilla latte tastes better. Be real with yourself and stop lying. I'll help you with your mental state when you can learn that there are so many other things mentally that you could do before you come to this stuff. Like, be real, be honest. Like, and then you're like, okay, start reading. Why don't you start reading? Read some books, some self-help books. See what avenue you want to go down before you start really diving into this, because I think you've got a lot of things, you know. And then one of the things she asked was, have you ever had enhancements in sport? No. Never. No. You've never had any drugs? No. Oh, good on you. That's great. Great work. Yeah. You got some homework to do, mate. And that was like okay, yeah, who does she think she is? But then if you actually go home and think about all the things that you tell yourself and tell other people, hey mate, how much do you train? Oh, but barely any, like I don't really train that much. You know you train heaps. just be honest and say it. So then these little ones and twos lies, these little perceptive things that we all do in every day. Some people do it for sport. Like, are you being prepared? No, I had a terrible week. Yeah, no. Knowing that you had a great week, so you're just going to go and blow it apart. Cooper Webb's probably a genius at this. So when I started looking into that side of, I guess, life, gee, there's so many things that come before sport and neurological conditioning. It's important, but if we learn to fix the ones and twos in our every day, that's where I noticed the last podcast, you can tell yourself all you want, but deep down your body will know. You can be great with neurological conditioning in sport, in the gym, on the days that you race. All these times you can be all over neurological, absolute genius. But if you go home and lie about things at home, hide truth at home, tell people things that aren't, do you do drugs? Nope, never touched steroids in my life. Nope. If you keep that in the background, you're not pure. Your body will know that, your mind will know that, and there will be a point where these two just don't work anymore, and then you give up on all of it. So I was taught by this psychiatrist to figure out life first, be good at telling the truth every day, so be pure with your word. If you say something, it needs to be truthful, and it needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be not malicious. Just say pure words. Just speak purely. Don't assume anything, because assumptions are dangerous. Don't take anything to heart, because nothing that anybody portrays onto you is something that you have caused. If somebody has a harsh feeling about you, a harsh thought about you, whatever about you, it's not because of what you've done, it's that the way they see you has made them angry, so they're putting hate on you. So get rid of that, and then just do the best that you can do. That was probably the most valuable thing I ever got taught.
Yeah, gotcha. You actually just described 3 of 12 chapters in Jordan Peterson's book, Chaos and Order, I think it is.
There's a...
lesson 1 is always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. The second one is about assumptions, and then the third one, I can't remember the title of it, but...
This book that all of these came from was the 4 Agreements. Can't remember the dude's name. It's only a short book, it's not that long. It's the one that Tom Brady said he read first.
Gotcha.
And that's why all these values kept coming out. And she thought that would be a good segue for me. So someone in sport, him, pretty successful, live off these 4 agreements, figure that out first before you go too heavy into the neurological space. And I thought that was interesting, because there's somebody that makes money by you being there talking to them. She's actually brilliant at her job. She doesn't want the money. She doesn't care about the money. You're just not ready for it.
Tell you the truth, yeah.
Yeah, tell you the truth. You're not ready for it, so we'll wait until you come back when you're ready. But I thought that was pretty interesting.
All right, we'll switch gears. Why are you laughing?
Just ready. I'm ready.
What are you ready for? We're just having a chat.
Yeah. I'm ready for anything. Yeah.
Do you want to fight?
It's okay if you want to. If you need to get some stuff out.
I'm not, everyone's seen me fight, so we're not going to go down that road. Do you think Australia will ever be invaded by China or Russia? Because geez, the news talks about it a lot.
Do you know, I haven't watched the news in years. Since I got Netflix, we don't watch the news. We have, our television goes on, it's either YouTube or Netflix, that's it.
You're missing out on a bit.
Yeah, I just don't see any value in it. I used to.
You don't want to know about all the Taylor Swift stuff going on at the moment?
No, I've got so much of it going on in my own house, I don't need to...
What about Russia? They're on the way.
Nah. You hear all this stuff, but honestly, there's only been one time in the decade that I've been in the army that somebody's come to me with where I've actually thought, oh shit, like this is pretty bad. We're at the School of Infantry 2021 and 22. And the School of Infantry is a very different place. The army barracks that we have here is what they call non-combat corps. So non-combat is obviously, your medics, your mechanics, your whatever. School of Infantry is all warfighter. It's foot soldiers, it's heavy weapons, it's bombs, it's everything. It's the big stuff. And he got everyone together and said, hey, listen, things aren't good. And we're going in a direction where this is where it looks like it's going. We need to prepare our trained force. We're going to change the tempo of training.
This is like a serious threat.
Yeah, like it was the only time ever where a lieutenant colonel would sit down and say something really about it. And that was kind of like the first time I went, oh shit, and then I talked to him after it and said, hey, sir, is this like I was like, we don't know anything, mate. We don't know anything. We just need to know that, as the trainer, we need kinetic fighting, hand-to-hand combat fighting. We need it to be at its best. We need to be fit. We need to be ready. Like, oh shit. Okay, and that was that little bit of fear. Nothing happened. It's not that nothing happened because nothing happened. Lots of things changed behind the scenes, but that was the closest in my 10 years where it's ever been, hey, we need to tell the floor now that things are getting real.
Yeah, gotcha.
Normally that sort of stuff, like you could have assassinations and shit happen well before it gets down to a sergeant.
Yeah.
Where in the big scheme of things are nothing. It would stop at the commissioned ranks and they would, whatever. So do I actually get the vibe and feel like something bad's going to happen? Not even the slightest.
Do you think there's things going on that are not physical, like mental?
Yeah, absolutely. I think...
like AI and all that shit?
Yeah, there is. Like they say, if you have TikTok on your phone, that obviously China's now got everything.
Yeah.
They invented that app purely for that.
That's real?
So that's obviously something that happens. I'm probably far too immature to even think about this. Like, if I don't have TikTok on my phone, but if I did, I would still be on it, be like, yeah, that's a funny post. Or I would just click through and try to find the Kale Makem controversial stuff. Like,
you know what? It's actually not allowed on TikTok. They take it all down, which is kind of funny because there's a lot of questionable content on there.
There is.
A lot of stuff that inspires like weakness or just being downright weird and degenerate. And then I'll go and jump a motorbike and crash, and because there's a body flying that seems extreme, they'll cut it out, or because you say a swear word, or just anything that's sort of like basically just men being men 5-10 years ago, that will now, like, it doesn't last more than a minute on there.
Yeah, so...
a burnout in the car. We put fire in the wheels the other day, like it was just a little bit exciting, and like all taken off. It's like I literally can't do anything other than just sit there and be a nerd.
Yeah, right.
That's like, that's constant. Like that actually is real.
Yeah, I mean, the things that we... If there was a war, I think being a foot soldier would be nothing really to worry about. I think the people who are going to get affected by it are your drone pilots, your fighter pilots, I think the Navy are going to be heavily involved because the ships firing missiles from ships. A lot of electronic guided warfare. I don't think there's going to be a lot of... They're not going to send me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm a trained force, so my job is to prepare people for war. My job would be to be here always to make sure that they are fit and ready. They do send PTIs, and when I transitioned to being a PTI, the first thing they said is that be prepared that your deployments are going to be far and few between, because they will have someone over there that takes care of the gym equipment, that runs fitness sessions over there so you can keep the soldiers fit. But it's not a high priority, so my investment in the whole learning about it, listening to the news, it doesn't really pertain to me, so I kind of didn't take much interest.
So we're talking about, is it Ben Robert Smith?
Yep.
Earlier. He made headlines in the news for doing things in Afghanistan that were probably normal and needed and acceptable over there, but very unrealistic and gruesome here.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that sort of stuff? Is it like, is the Defence Force and the Army, like the things that you do day to day, just, they should be completely left of what's normal in normal society? I think
is
it really that rough and tough behind the scenes? Like, is that how it is? Like, I know when you join the forces, they'll sit you down, shave your head, all that sort of stuff. Is that actually how it is? Like, is it as tough as what it used to be portrayed?
10 years, it's like joining Kapuka, like going to join the Army in general.
Yeah, just, I guess, like the general perception of Army is like, shave your head, get your ass beat. You're up at 4 a.m, you're not sleeping some nights doing Hell Week. Like, it's tough, it's rough, you're sleeping in dorms, like, you're getting yelled at, is it?
So to go to Kapuka is, when I went 10 years ago, it was, I left my family, I had a wife and 2 kids. And it was difficult to get on a bus and leave because I'm going for 12 weeks. 12 weeks isn't a lot of time, but it's a lot if you've never had time away. They shave your head, you get yelled at, you get treated like shit. When I say get treated like shit, it's like disregard for your human rights, basically. You would say, excuse me, Corporal, can I blah blah, shut up, who are you, why are you asking? No, you can't go to the toilet, just shut up and wait, you get a toilet break in a minute. And they'd probably purposely just wait however long they needed to.
And that's legit, that happens.
Yeah, but that's like, they do that in schools as well. They used to back in the day, like, can I go to the toilet? No, you can't, you're an idiot, you're going to go out there and do something dumb. No. And you go, fuck, he knows. Like, he knows about the draw on the wall. Like, so it is tough. I think the difference between the Army is that you're actually removed from civilization. You're now in a barracks. There's nowhere to run. You can't run to the fence and you can't get away. You're in Wagga. That's a long way from Newcastle. So the fact that it's serious and you're there weighs a lot on the experience. And it is an experience. So Yeah.
What's like the hardest thing you'll go through there?
Just the physical. You go from doing PT pretty much every day, you're doing something PT related.
Yeah.
So you're doing, you'll do a circuit or something with a lot of running, you get flogged around. Then the next day you wake up in the morning and you're presenting back again. And the PTIs who were there when I went through, just a state of panic. You're shocked all the time. You're getting yelled at, they're like, yeah, you didn't form up fast enough, run out and around the goalpost, come back, and now you're like flushed, you're puffing, they make you go and do something else.
What would happen if you said, no, I can't do it, I'm too tired?
You'd just get screamed at to the point where you just would. I only saw one person refuse to play the game.
Yeah.
He was a police officer, he was a constable, he'd joined the army thinking it was going to be better. He got yelled at and he just stood there and went, nah. And they were like, if you don't move, I'm going to get you by your head and I'm going to fucking drag you down the hallway. And
does it get physical?
No. So then he just went, no. So then they didn't, and he's like, right, that's it, you're getting charged. Yeah, whatever, charge me, I've got heaps of money. So then they charged him, and then they back squatted him, which means I'll take him out of his platoon and then instead of being 12 weeks, it's now like 2 weeks later. So they've just cost him 2 weeks for being a smart ass, and now he goes back to day one and he's got to do day one stuff again. So then he learnt the game, went, okay, and then they were like, you can do this 2 ways. And I've talked to him since he's been out. He reconnected a few years ago and whatever, and I said to him, what ended up happening? And he just said, they won. Because they said, listen, we've got you for 4 years. If you want to stay in Kapuka for 4 years, getting run around a rugby oval, getting made to do push-ups, getting screamed at, having your head shaved, like routinely, if you want that dream to reoccur for 4 years and get paid like I think it's like $1,000 a fortnight, $500 a week, fill your boots, brother, because we've got you for 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And eventually he just went, oh, okay, shit. And then it is tough.
Do you do like a version of Hell Week, like what they do with the Navy SEALs?
Yeah, kinda. It's what you'll do is you go out to do your field phase. So you go and live in a field environment where routinely there'd be like section attacks. So you'd go and dig pits and you'd dig in. So you'd make a defensive position. They'd have enemy in the bush, bang, bang, blank rounds. Pretty much all night you would be running around firing. It's very exhausting. To play army is very exhausting. A lot of crawling, a lot of up, yelling out target indications, down, crawling again, now you're buggered. You only have to do that 2 or 3 times and you're completely shagged. Then you're up, you're sweaty, you've got all your stuff on you, you're tired, you haven't slept. So they do that for about 24 hours. Then you have a massive stores carry, which is really heavy and really hard, and you're just pack marching and you're done, your feet are sore, your legs are sore, you haven't slept in now 2 days. Then they run you through the obstacle course and then the bayonet assault course where they make you get really aggressive, and then they just destroy your life for a couple of days, and then that's the finishing culminator. So it's not really the same as Hell Week, but they'll put you through just non-stop stuff.
Is there any sympathy at all?
No.
Just pure tough love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 10 years ago, it was worse than it is today.
Because, obviously there's a bit of softness creeping in the world. Does that affect the army at all?
Absolutely, 100%.
It is?
It's really bad. Yeah.
Yeah, in what ways?
I'm pretty old school, and I'm not...
Pink-head trainees running PTs, is there? Or?
Well, the easiest way to say it is I'm not super progressive because I grew up in an old family. My grandfather's 90-something now, 96. He was a lot of my influence. Old school, doesn't take well to new ways. We're getting new ways forced down our throats every day. You have to come and learn about this and be okay with it, or you're out. And you're like, well, I'm out then, because you can't make me be okay with that. And I refuse to go to that seminar to make me on board with those people and what that's up. No, I'm not doing it. And if you're not prepared to do it, you're the outcast. So now you're like borrowed time. Like, that's cool. And then the threats go away and they learn that they can't actually sack you for that because that would be a bigger headline. And then there's just a barrier between the new and then the old.
Is there many people joining the forces today?
The recruitment rate has dropped a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of people leave though. So
Say that again, sorry.
So there's a few come in, like we do get recruitment drives come in really heavy, and then they thin out. They're usually at the very start of the year when kids have got no plans after year 12, they don't know what they're going to do, massive intakes. Then they thin out towards the middle of the year because they've either started a job and they've liked it, or they've figured out they want to do something else. Towards the end of the year when they realise they've just wasted their year after year 12 and they don't know what they want to be when they grow up, then a heavy drive before Christmas. But lots of people are leaving. So it kind of gets nowhere.
Do you ever get some come in and they're just not ready?
Yes.
And what happens?
So So to put this into perspective, when I joined, you had to do 40 push-ups as a male who was 25 years or under.
That was the limit?
40 push-ups. You have to do 40 push-ups or you cannot progress in Kapuka to go to the next...
In what time?
So you get 2 minutes.
That's pretty low threshold.
Back then, it was, I went in with 50 people and I think there was like 47 of us passed. A few that didn't, they just stayed in training camp until they were ready and then they went into a later session. But majority of everyone would get 40 push-ups. You need to get 75 sit-ups to a cadence, so it's to a track. And you need to do a 2.5 kilometre run, 2.4k run in 11 minutes 18 or less if you're under 25.
So 2.4 kilometres.
In 11:18 or less if you're under 25.
So what's that, 4 minutes 10 kilometres? 4, 8...
Yeah, about that.
12, yeah.
If you can maintain that, yeah.
That's a pretty good pace, yeah.
So that was the standard when I got in. There was no exceptions. If you didn't hit that standard, you were out. Or you had to go to another week.
And that hasn't lowered, has it?
Holy. We've had people in this year, so this year is very, very early into the year, with a max push-up count of 4. And...
You're kidding, are you?
No, and they've made it through Kapuka.
What do you mean?
And they are now into their initial training employment. So they're now into their trade. They're now starting their trade on 4 push-ups.
Right.
So...
And that's going to defend...
The reason they did this and they sold it to this in a way that things have to change because the demographic's changing. Kids don't play sports anymore, they play Xbox.
That doesn't mean that the threat of violence and how to defend the country changes.
No. So now you've got the older people who are saying, turf them.
I guess then you're going to have no one join, are you?
The new one saying, well, we have to have an army. So if we're looking for an army that can do this much, we're going to have this many people. If we lower the standard but we have more people, we can train more people. So this comes back to the...
Look, I'm glad we live on an island.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So the way they look at it now is that 2 people standing next to each other, one can do 40 push-ups, one can't do 40 push-ups. One can do, we'll say 4, because it's been done. They might be really smart and be a fantastic leader and be able to drive the team where they need to go. Whereas this dude might be super smart for sports, super dumb for everything else, but he can do his 40 push-ups. So now they've had to, the way they've justified it is we need to pick strengths, use the strengths. Don't worry about the fitness so much, we can build that. And we can build the fitness. So the 4 push-ups, he will get 40 push-ups by the time he's out. It just means that the transition went from having to do that before you got in to learning that while you're there. Now you're in the real army and you can do it.
Isn't that a crazy shift on the world? Like it used to be, you had to be strong, you had to be masculine, you had to be big and tough to defend and fill that role. Whereas now, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you probably, you still need to have those necessities, but if there was a war to break out, so to speak, it's probably going to be fought with drones and AI and computers and technologies and all that sort of stuff anyway. So it's kind of like, well, to turn away someone that can only do 4 push-ups, but they could be great at hacking something somewhere, like that's...
Also,
for the purpose of defence, A
normal day for me would be to get into work. I might have 1 or 2 classes where I've got to teach either strength and conditioning or I've got to teach general fitness, and I'll take them through, or it might be OBS course or it might be battle PT, whatever it is, simulated PT. By 8:30, I got my cycling shoes on, I'm clipped in, I'm zone 2 ready, go and do an hour of zone 2, or I'll go and do the Standmaster or whatever it is for zone 2 for an hour. I go back to my computer desk and I start working on developing programs, testing theories. I go and put PT gear back on and I'll go and try out some stuff. So that would be, as a full-time soldier, that's my day. The amount of people that can't even believe that's a day. Even my partner's like, what do you even do? Like, I don't know. Like,
you shoot guns and stuff?
Yeah, so when you need to, you go to the range and you do your shoots.
Like you lob your grenade and...
Yeah, like that's a lot of courses and a lot of things. So the Army's got a really good approach to, we're going to teach you 50 things and I hope that you retain 5.
Because I'd like to join the Army for the excitement of it, but what you just mentioned doesn't really...
Yeah, like when I wasn't a PTI and I was an actual, like a private as a soldier, my job then was to
like what are those days like? Yeah.
Those would be force ready days. They were even more difficult to be engaged. So it was coming into work every day, you'd do PT, you'd go back to the yard, which is where your unit is. So big barbed wire fences inside a compound, you'd go into the compound, usually making sure your weapon's good, your equipment's good, everything's good, waiting for an exercise, that's it. So then you'd go to the gym and train, or you would sit around and... whatever.
Man, that's so much money for like the possibility of a threat maybe one time in the future,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Like it's like firemen.
What is it, 30 billion a year?
Oh, I couldn't tell the exact
I think it's 30 to
figures.
50.
Once again, unless it's on Netflix.
Is there much like history and loyalty to the country, like to Australia? Do they enforce that or teach that, or like you sit down and this is our roots and this is what we're defending and you're here to for Australia?
Very much.
Yeah.
Tradition, yeah, a lot of it. It's a hard. This is probably the first time I ever talked about it because we're not usually we have to have a PR team or someone with us to tell us what you can and can't say.
Yeah,
and I do know that Kale Makem is a.
No one's going to watch.
It's going global.
Don't worry about it. Yeah. No, the reason I ask is like there's a story. I think it was when they went to Normandy once. I can't remember who it was. It might have been the French against the Russians, something like that. And they were severely outnumbered. The French had like 2 million soldiers, and the Russians had like 500,000. So they knew they were going to lose. They were coming onto their territory. They were showing up in boats, and all the odds were against them. And what they did was they burned the boats on the shore. So they said, you can't go back. Like, we're here to defend our country. You either die or you win. They're the only options. We can't get in the boat and retreat at any point. And I can't recite the whole story, but it was basically because of the love for their country and the fear of death that they ended up winning it. Every one of their soldiers killed 4 of the other. And it always sort of ties back to the roots of loving your country and that sort of thing. Is that like pushed? Is that...
Kapuka has traditions. So when you go through Kapuka, you'll have the very first week is about traditions and learning the uniform, how to iron the uniform, how to wear the uniform, the different uniforms that exist. They go through the different ranks. So you need to know all the different ranks so that you can correctly salute somebody or address them as such. So there's a lot of history that gets taught there. But only speaking on my personal experience, I don't have a lot of, like, I love the country, love Australia, and I'm serving. So if I'm prepared to go overseas and potentially die for my country, then that's just the job that I do. But
so yeah, like, are you serving as a job or because you love Australia? Like, what?
I'm serving because it's a job. I don't really, and that's not, I don't think that's my fault either. I can't put the blame on any one specific thing, but when I drive through the gate and I see people going, hey mate, how are you? Like, yeah, good mate, how are you going? And they've just got like a big beer belly out and they're walking around and you're just like,
fuck.
And then
That's not how I picture it, eh?
No, and then you train people and you're like, hey, like you get to know a lot of people, and I love to people watch. My wife and I think it's like, it sounds terrible and everyone's like, oh my God, a people watch, are you kidding? Everyone people watches, we all do it. And
airports are great.
And I look at a lot of people in my chain of command and whatever, and I just look at them and think, God, I can almost tell what you were like at school. Like, I can tell, like who you are and what you're about, like just your personality, how your hair's like never really maintained, except when you get told to, like, you know. And then you get the other people who are, my hair is always on point, I'm always shaven, I'm always done. That's a very, I find that like a, you're there to be in the army. Because you're always ironed, you're always whatever. You see someone with a crinkled uniform and the hair's a bit shitty, you're like, dude, you were never really built for this. This is a job.
Yeah, this is a Rhino quote, but the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Which is you know, if you dress professionally and smart and take care of your image, then you're probably got to take care of your work and your relationships and everything else from there on.
So it's hard for me to trick myself and pretend like, you know, I'm all about that country, the pride, like, you know, armies, everything in life. And then but I know that these are the people that I deal with every day. It brings down the legitimacy of it. It brings down the...
They sound very tolerant to,
Like, imagine if you
best.
thought, you know, like you were the greatest fitness trainer on earth and I came to your house and there was just ciggy butts everywhere and beer cans and shit. There would be a part of your brain, whether you like it or not, would go, yeah, and you're kind of uninvested in it now. And it's like,
well, no one likes
really
a hypocrite. Yeah.
The fittest person, like, I don't know. So for me, I kind of feel like that because when I joined, I took it really seriously. I was older and I took it like super serious. And
I thought you took it serious, and then I seen a Rhino Power hat in your van, and I was just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Well, you know, my wife and
I'm just staring you.
We didn't have anybody in the army, so we didn't know anything. So when I went in, I actually thought that I was getting my head shaved and I was going to war and I'm going to die.
Is there much like lineage and family history in the army?
For me?
No, for anyone.
Yeah.
Or is it just like lost souls that join, or people that love their country?
There's a lot of family, a lot of families that are multi-generational. There's sort of heaps of people that, you know, my dad was in, my uncle was in, or a lot of people will say, yeah, my great-grandfather fought in X war and that's why I joined. And so there is a fair bit of that.
It's very like, I don't know if it's lost, but you look at America and some other countries, like the pride and joy is a defense force.
Yeah.
It's the army. Like, you're American, you support the army, and it's Australia. It's kind of like, I guess, like you said, it's almost just a job to a degree. It's not a passion or
Well, to put this into perspective, we went to the USO when I come back from the World Vets. The USO is the US military hub that's at LAX. So veterans can go there and store their bags for free. You can stay there and get free food, free drink, watch TV. There's a cinema there, there's showers, there's literally everything you could do in a Qantas lounge plus more for free for military serving personnel. Dude, I was so embarrassed when I walked in because I felt like such a fraud walking in there. Like, my hair stood up on the back of my neck. I was like, this place is crazy. There is nothing but war, artifacts everywhere. You see the soldier with his head slumped over in the chair and you're like, man, this dude looks like he's just come back from war, and he probably has. Like, they're just tired, and they're just people that are like, hey man, how you going? Head down, and you're just like, Jesus. And even like the civilians that work there were like, oh my God, hello Sergeant, how you going? Please come this way, like come and do you want some free food? And I felt bad for taking the food because it felt like, nah, I'm not in this company. This is even my wife said, he's like, you look at these people and you're like, what they get paid half what we get paid.
So you're saying like they really serve is what you kind of mean? Yeah, gotcha.
So when you're in a lineup and they'll say military first, they really get military first, and people usually don't have any problem with it at all.
Yeah.
I think if I was wearing a uniform and I said, hey, I'm just super flat out, is there any chance that I could just pay for my fuel first? I reckon I'd get into a fight at the servo.
That's a shame.
I refuse to wear my uniform anywhere.
Really?
Because every time I'm in it, I hate it. I hate the looks, the stares, he thinks he's better than everyone else. So,
man, that's such a disconnect from the reality of the world that, like, for the general person not to respect the army, so to speak, like your defence force, what keeps you safe. Which I guess in Australia, it's, there's not anyone trying to invade us anytime soon, but
no.
So it's not.
I mean, someone's got to do the job, and we should always be thankful for those who are doing it. It just gets ruined when people who are doing it perceive themselves to be, hey, you should give me your respect because I'm awesome. And that's the problem. There is the 1%, the few out there that do walk in with a tall chest and I guess a bit arrogant on the drink in the night. That'll sort of pave the way for the rest of people to say, armies are AJs, which is an army joke.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because that one dude on the piss was like mouthing off how he's a trained killer and he's gonna whatever. So it's like
I mean, if someone's defending my country, I'd probably rather they're brash and confident and probably full of themselves, to be honest. Like, I probably wouldn't go down the pub and have a beer with them, but
I would never let my kids join.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, right. Why's that?
I just want better for them. I want better for
In what regard? It's funny to hear this because I hold, like, just any defence force of any country in such a high regard.
Yeah.
But I understand in previous, the past 10 years or whatever, it's...
The point that if I could get a point across, it would be 100%. If anyone does respect it, please don't let this make them not respect the defence. It's 100% what it is. You serve your country, whatever. I'm just I would say I'm a realist, and I can't pretend it's something it's not. If I just go to work every day and I come home every day, I spend tons of time with my family. When somebody comes and says, thank you so much for your service and all the hard sacrifices, they've been hard years, absolutely. There was almost 3 years in a row where I spent no more than like 3 months at home. It was terrible. But for the most part, I probably see my family more than flying fly-out workers will see over the space of X years.
Gotcha. So you sort of like, there's a bit of guilt there because it's not really that hard.
I don't find it hard.
Yeah, gotcha.
And you'll have a ton of different soldiers in a ton of different roles say the only reason why he doesn't find it hard is because he's now got those shorts and he's now at the front training people and he's now, he's living the dream. But here's the way I look at it. Anyone can do that. If you're fit enough to pass the barrier test and become a PTI and have the life that I have, then you can do that. Anyone can do that. Anyone. Actually, they scream for people every year saying we need more people to come forward. So I never really take it too serious when people are saying that, you have the best job, that's why you have these thoughts. Because there is jobs out there that are hard, where they're just working non-stop. But if they're war-related jobs, they just simulate training, that's all they do. Which is basically playing army every day.
That's funny to hear.
Which is cool, but if you're interested in it and that's like your passion,
if you actually want to fight in combat, you probably shouldn't join the Australian Army because our history of wars are quite minimal.
Yeah. My brother-in-law has been deployed 3 times. So he's obviously my partner's family, but he's been deployed 3 times, and the years that he went was the heavy fighting years.
And are they like when you get deployed, it's full on, it's serious?
Yeah. So he's got 2 of his deployments were like peak fighting season. One was off season, one was on season, but the off season one was also like frontline, walking through the houses in the villages.
And that's legit, death at any time.
Yep, knocking on the doors, could get blown up at any time. He lost friends. He's been there and done it.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the best advocate for defence. He loves it. He's such a nice dude. He will tell you, you know, I love the army. It's awesome. Doesn't like how, you know, you get treated sometimes when you really need family time and they just say, hey, you joined, unlucky. And it costs you in your home life and your family life. And I think that's the hardest thing about defence.
Yeah.
It's not for families.
Sacrifice for sure.
Families are second. But he will tell you his experiences for serving his country. Dude, you won't meet a prouder dude. He's all over it. And he's been to the worst and seen, he's been shot, or hasn't been shot, but he's been shot at. He's seen mates of his that have had the ultimate sacrifice. He's had mates that have been injured by it all. So he's been around that very front line, and you wouldn't know it because he's just such a cool dude.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah. A lot of varied experiences in defence.
Yeah, I'm starting to pick up on that, yeah.
When I joined, I thought everyone was a soldier.
Yeah.
And then I learnt that there's mechanics who literally work in a workshop every day.
Yeah, it's like a big business.
And they fix cars.
Yeah.
And they're just in uniform.
Gotcha.
And then there's construction guys who build houses in the middle of Australia for Indigenous communities. That's where they get sent to go and do it. And then you're like,
So what percentage would you say of the personnel, I think there's 40,000 employed by the ADF, are actually like frontline combat?
I don't know the exact figures on it. It's very small.
Like 1%?
Yeah, they're like the largest percent is non-combat. So all the support roles, because it takes more.
That's wild.
Yeah. So when Korea sent 100,000 infantry soldiers to their shoreline to show force, that shockwave went through the army like nothing else. Like they sent 100,000 spare infantry. We don't even have that combined in all of our force, let alone the ones that are trained to kill.
Yeah,
that was just there, like, send them up there to show fist.
Yeah, right.
We'll keep the good ones back here, just send 100,000 of the half-decent ones.
Yeah.
That's how you know, like, how serious can you really take this? Like, if there's a war, I'm putting my Tiger Designs moto helmet on and I'm spinning my last laps. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, maybe
this is a very difficult place to get to as well. If you look logistically, we can see threats coming from
absolutely, yeah, it's
forever away.
I kind of wonder why I mean, you have to spend it, but yeah, it's
if they get here and we didn't know,
you've got bigger issues than people on the front line.
Let them in, like they've done pretty well.
Yeah, I think even if there was a nuclear war, we'd only like Australia's the safest place on earth to be. Australia, New Zealand, Vanuatu are the three safest countries, so we wouldn't be affected. So I don't know if that's because the missile can reach here or not, or.
There's lots of reasons why. The accuracy, the amount of even bad people are pretty well aware of if it goes wrong. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
So it's and I think it's a time.
It's kind of crazy. Like you watch the news, you think fuck, there's like a nuclear bomb in the sky on the way over right now. But then you Google the facts and you talk to you and you're like, yeah, it's safest country in the world if there was one.
I feel pretty about it all. Like I think even like the worst dude who's polishing his nuclear bomb at home, like. Gonna throw this thing out there. Like even he at one point's like, but really, but I'm gonna go to jail if I like. You'll have something where it's like it's not an easy thing to do to know that thing could probably end.
Yeah.
Everything.
It's just funny when I talk to people like you in person that are actually in it, and you can get a feel for what it's like, and it's like it's nothing's ever as just crazy as what they make it seem. Like even like the climate change stuff, my partner and I went to the Great Barrier Reef because they obviously were saying the Great Barrier Reef's it's going to die, yada yada.
Yep.
And the guy there leading the tour, he was like, no, it's all a load of shit. It's like the healthiest it's ever been. I'm like, are you kidding? Like just for the last 5 years, all I heard is like the world's ending. Like, and then you go there and you hear from the source, straight from their mouth, and you're like, oh, there's really not that much bad stuff going on. It's all just...
And this is what we talked about the other day, that if people had more honest interactions with real experiences instead of telling people bits and pieces, just tell the truth. If they're asked if you've done something or experienced something or if you've been there, tell them the actual experience. So then the next chain of people don't think we have to get to that reef because it's crumbling. And then old mates there double thumbing going, there's fish I've never seen before, this thing is awesome. It's confusing. So I think it comes down to real interactions. People get the good word out there more instead of negative stuff.
It is, and tolerance. Not tolerating when it's not the truth. Yeah. As well, I find that a lot. Like you'll hear things and you kind of know it's not true, whatever, but you don't say anything. You don't stand up to it, and then like the more of, there's always been falsehoods out there and whatnot, and just the difference in the past was they weren't tolerated. Like if you talk shit, you usually get put in your place, whereas now it's kind of like, it just seems normal to have falsehoods out there that will reverberate wherever they go to. Touch on steroids quick.
Yep.
You got 2 minutes.
What would you like to know?
Are they a benefit in sport?
Yep.
Do more people do them than other people think?
Absolutely.
How beneficial are they?
I think they're incredibly beneficial when it comes to what sport is. Life and longevity.
So I'm obviously asking like from an army's perspective, because you deal with this stuff every day. Can you do them and not get caught?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, there's a big discussion about the enhanced games that are coming up. Like, people are shocked that this is happening. We've been watching enhanced games for decades and you just haven't known it because they haven't announced it. Or the people who are enhanced haven't been caught. But it's pretty, I would probably say if you mark the times and the events in the enhanced games, I don't think you're going to see much difference between the times that non-enhanced
Because they're all enhanced.
got.
Is there steroids in motocross?
I don't see the huge benefit. Peptides, yes. Steroids as a blanket, I don't see a massive deal for steroids in motocross. You can get strong enough without steroids.
So you don't think steroids are a benefit in motocross?
Not a huge benefit. If you use them conventionally, how they're supposed to be used, no, I don't think it would be. You would just get heavier and stronger, but that's not really what you want. I think peptides for recovery, for endurance, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know who uses them, but I think they are a huge benefit, of course.
Yeah, gotcha. Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up there, mate.
Done.
Anything else you want to get out?
No.
What are your thoughts on Todd?
I think he's a great guy. I haven't met him. I've only known him for the hour and however long the podcast went for. But I would love to have healthy discussions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he's great.
Yeah, awesome. The only reason I asked that is because you're a very physically data-driven person, whereas Todd's very in the mind, beliefs, values, that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like two opposite sides of the divide, which is really interesting for me to talk to you people because I'm the dumbest guy in every conversation. Todd knows heaps more about the mind. I'm just sitting there like, fuck, didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you about the physicality of the body and in the army. I'm like, fuck, didn't know that. Same thing when I talk to Greg, this, that, and the other. And it's very interesting to hear the different sides of the divide.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool. Apart from being the dumbest person in the conversation every time.
Yeah, it's good. It's normally me.
Yeah. Nah, cool, mate. Well, I appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. And cheers.